2026 does not enter your life like an ordinary new year. It arrives slowly, quietly, but it carries a very different kind of weight. If you are a Libra and you are listening to these words, you may have felt it long before the year even knocked on the door. A vague feeling, yet unmistakably real, like standing in front of a familiar doorway, while your soul already knows that what lies beyond it will no longer be the old world. Some years simply pass through us, but there are other years that stay. They leave their mark on our memory, on the way we see life, the way we see others, and the way we see ourselves. For Libra, 2026 is one of those years. Not loud, not dramatic, yet it carries a quiet force that makes it impossible for you to return to who you used to be, even if you wanted to. This is the year when an old identity begins to fall away, not through sharp pain, but through clarity. You start to realize how much you have outgrown the patterns that once felt safe. The roles that once felt familiar begin to feel too tight. The choices that once pleased others leave behind a space in your heart that is hard to name. And within that subtle discomfort, a new version of you is quietly forming. Libra is the sign of balance, of beauty, of harmony. But 2026 does not ask you to keep everything balanced by sacrificing yourself. This year asks you a very honest question. It does not shout, it whispers. If you do not choose yourself, who will? If you do not stand at the center of your own life, do the rest of your decisions truly belong to you? The beginning energy of 2026 does not feel like a sudden leap forward. It feels more like an underground current, slowly changing direction. The choices you make this year may look ordinary to the outside world. A quiet no, a conscious yes, a silent decision to walk away, a brave moment of finally speaking what you have held inside for far too long. Yet beneath the surface, each of these choices is quietly redrawing the long road of your life. Libra in 2026 no longer waits for everything to be clear before taking a step forward. You learn to walk with the unknown, carried by a deeper trust in yourself. Not loud confidence, but a quiet steadiness. The sense that no matter what happens, you will find your footing. And even more than that, you will find meaning. This is also the year you begin to look at your past without blame. What once felt like a burden becomes proof of your resilience, your compassion, your ability to rise after moments that once felt impossible. You do not erase who you were, you thank them. And then, gently, you place your hand on the door of a new life. A life where decisions no longer come from the fear of losing balance, but from the desire to live in truth. You may not yet have words for everything shifting inside you, and that is okay. Some changes do not need to be understood right away. They only need to be allowed. And when you allow yourself to step into this year with honesty, with an open heart, with the belief that you deserve a life chosen by your own soul, you begin to feel something deeply important, that you are not lost. You are returning, step by step, to your rightful place, bathed in a gentle, yet unmistakably real light of the path unfolding quietly before you. And as that light becomes clear enough for you to truly see yourself, something else begins to appear, a sense of trust. Not blind faith, but a quiet certainty rising from within, like placing your feet on solid ground and knowing the earth will hold you. This is the gift 2026 brings to Libra. It does not hand you ready-made answers. It gives you the ability to recognize your own. You may have grown used to overthinking, listening to too many voices, and at times letting hesitation blur that small but honest voice inside you. But this year is different. Your intuition no longer whispers. It stands present, clear, calm, patiently waiting for you to return and listen. No pressure, no judgment, just a deep knowing that some decisions do not need to be explained to the world. Libra in 2026 begins to understand that doubting yourself is not humility. It is an old habit that has reached its end. Each time you stop asking if you are enough, if you are right, the space around you widens slightly. Opportunities that once felt stuck begin to breathe. Relationships that seemed frozen start to shift into a different rhythm, more natural, more real. Trust in yourself does not arrive in one dramatic moment. It is built through small choices, repeated again and again. Trusting the first feeling when you meet someone. Trusting the discomfort that appears when a path no longer fits. Trusting the strange sense of peace that comes when you finally say no to what once kept you awake at night. And each time you do, the world responds softly, but clearly, as if confirming that you have taken one more step in the right direction. Better things do not arrive because you try harder than anyone else. They arrive because you stop resisting your own current. When Libra stops doubting, stops breaking themselves apart to fit other people's expectations, energy begins to move faster. No longer held back by the fear of being wrong, you start to see life open in the most natural way, as if it has been waiting for you to be ready. There may still be moments when you slow down. That does not mean you are off your path. It is simply the pause you need to hear your inner voice more clearly, the one that is quiet, yet deeply honest. And in those pauses, you begin to sense that you are being guided, not by circumstances, but by the deep understanding of yourself you have gathered over time. This trust slowly becomes your foundation. It does not separate you from the world. It allows you to stand firmly within it. You still love, you still care, you still connect, but you no longer trade your truth to keep the peace. You understand now that true harmony only exists when you do not abandon yourself in any choice you make. And as you continue forward with that trust in your heart, another feeling begins to spread. The feeling that you no longer need to prove anything. You only need to show up as who you truly are and allow life to respond in its own way. Within that rhythm, you start to realize something quietly profound. That certain connections, certain opportunities, certain doors only open when you stand in the right place. Your place. With a full sense of trust and a heart that no longer doubts itself. And from that moment on, a very gentle truth begins to reveal itself. That you do not need to become anyone else to be worthy. That your value does not come from being chosen, but from choosing yourself every single day, quietly, yet with steady conviction. The year 2026 brings Libra a lesson that is not loud, but deeply profound. A lesson about returning to yourself, not to shrink, but to place yourself back at the center, where relationships and choices can revolve in a healthy way. When you begin to treat yourself with genuine respect, the world around you changes the way it responds. Not all at once, but clearly enough for you to feel it. Self-love this year is not made of grand declarations. It lives in very small acts. You allow yourself to rest without guilt. You listen to your body when it asks you to slow down. You stop over-explaining choices that come from honesty. And each time you do this, you are gently repairing the parts of yourself that were worn down by putting everyone else first for far too long. Libra has always been skilled at keeping the peace, at maintaining balance for every side. But this year teaches you a different kind of balance, one that is far more refined. The balance between giving and holding back, between listening to others and not abandoning your own inner voice. As you care for your inner world with patience, your intuition begins to sharpen. You no longer need to overthink what feels right for you. You feel it, clearly, calmly. Your personal energy shifts in the same way, no longer scattered, no longer leaking into unclear relationships or commitments that never came from the heart. Your energy gathers itself. It becomes warm, grounded, quietly magnetic. You do not need to try to impress. Your presence naturally becomes comforting, safe, and inviting to others. And when you move from this place, the right people begin to appear, not through chasing, but through resonance. The right opportunities arrive the same way. They do not force you to change, to fit them. They arrive like a gentle invitation, aligned with the person you are becoming. You begin to realize that you no longer need to chase anyone or anything. What is meant for you will find its way once you stop turning away from yourself. There is a quiet beauty in the image of Libra in the year 2026, a beauty that does not rely on external approval, but is nourished from within. You understand now that when you are the central value in your own life, everything else will either find its natural place around you or gently fall away, and both are necessary. In that quiet space, you begin to feel safe being alone and open enough to connect deeply when someone enters your world. Self-love does not make you distant, it makes you real. And from that realness, a very natural kind of healing spreads not only within you, but in the way you touch the world around you, with gentleness, with steadiness, and with a renewed trust in the path you are walking. When that gentleness becomes your natural state, another door quietly opens inside you, not loudly, not dramatically, just a feeling that is both familiar and new, as if you begin to hear more clearly what once passed by too quickly to notice. Libra in 2026 no longer lives only through thought. You begin to live through feeling. There are moments when you pause in the middle of an ordinary day and suddenly understand something about yourself, about a relationship, about a choice waiting in front of you. No confirmation needed, no extra information required, you simply know. And that knowing carries a deep sense of calm, as if something within you is quietly whispering that everything is moving in the right rhythm. This understanding does not come from trying harder to analyze. It comes from the stillness you have learned to protect. When your mind is no longer stretched thin by worry or expectation, when your nervous system is finally allowed to rest, the world begins to appear more clearly. You realize that you understand yourself more deeply, not because you think more, but because you listen better. Emotions that were once overlooked now become guidance. Subtle sensations in your body become messages. You may notice your dreams growing more vivid, not to predict anything, but to remind you of the quiet desires you once set aside. You may begin to see familiar signs repeating, numbers, phrases, images appearing at just the right moment when you need the gentlest reassurance. Not to make you dependent on them, but to strengthen your trust in the invisible connection between you and life itself. Libra begins to understand this year that intuition is not something distant or mystical. It is the result of spending enough time staying with yourself. And when you honor those signals, no matter how small, life slowly begins to reorganize itself. What no longer fits starts to leave naturally. What truly matters finds its place without force. You begin to notice that the calmer you are within, the less chaotic the world feels around you. Not because problems disappear, but because you are no longer pulled into them the way you once were. You stand at your own center, observing, choosing, and responding with a fresh sense of clarity. Each decision feels lighter now because it is no longer born from fear, but from an understanding of what truly nourishes you. In this state, you begin to feel guided, yet never controlled. There is a quiet trust in the rhythm of life, as if you are walking with it rather than against it. And as you move forward with that deep listening, you slowly realize something very simple and very true. There are moments that are incredibly still, incredibly real. Moments where you no longer need to search for answers. You only need to be present and allow what belongs to you to gently move closer. And from that grounded presence, another kind of power begins to awaken. Not loudly, but unmistakably clear. It is the feeling of self-mastery, not controlling others, not controlling circumstances, but mastering yourself in each moment of daily life. Libra in 2026 no longer reacts from old habits. You begin to act with a very different kind of awareness. Each step is intentional, not rushed, not impulsive, and no longer delayed by fear. There is a quiet certainty in the way you make decisions now, as if you have grown comfortable standing upright within yourself. No matter how strong the winds may be outside, inner power this year does not come from speaking louder or showing more. It comes from consistency. You do what you say. You say what you truly believe, and you allow your actions to reflect who you are becoming, not who you once had to pretend to be in order to fit in. Discipline no longer feels like force. It becomes a form of self-respect. You know when to move forward, you know when to pause, and you know when patience will allow things to ripen naturally. Libra has always been sensitive to the environment around you, but this year, you learn not to let that environment decide your direction. You no longer need to control the outside world to feel safe. You simply keep your breath steady, your boundaries clear, and your trust rooted in the idea that inner stability creates outer order. When you stop trying to manage everything, life responds with results that feel natural, almost effortless. A new calm settles into you. Others can feel it when they are near, not because you are distant, but because you are no longer pulled into unnecessary turbulence. You listen without being swept away. You care without losing your center. And it is this steadiness that allows you to become a grounding presence, not only for yourself, but for those around you. Your ability to lead in 2026 does not come from a title or a position. It comes from how you live. When you choose to live in truth, you quietly open a path for others to see a different possibility for themselves. You do not need to convince anyone. Your presence alone becomes the message that it is possible to move more slowly and still go far. To be kind to yourself without being selfish. To be strong without becoming rigid. You begin to see your vision more clearly, not as a detailed plan mapped out year by year, but as a deep knowing of direction. You know what deserves your time, what is worthy of your energy, and what needs to be released, even if it once felt familiar. That clarity keeps you from being distracted by what looks shiny but feels empty, or by invitations that do not truly nourish you. With that clarity, your actions become cleaner, fewer, yet deeper. Everything you do carries intention now, no longer busyness meant to fill a void, and when you live this way, results no longer need to be chased. They find you, at the right time, in the right form, as if they have been arranged long before you arrived. You may not immediately recognize the moment you fully step into mastery, but you will feel it in the lightness, in the absence of needing to prove anything, in the way you move through the world with a deep trust in yourself. And within that steady rhythm, a new space begins to open, a space where connection, companionship, and meaningful bonds quietly make their way toward you, not by force, not by effort, but as a natural extension of a life you are finally living with honesty, with presence, and with truth. You feel this not through logic, but through a warmth slowly spreading in your chest, like stepping into a softly lit room after a long day. There is no need to name it. You simply know that you are no longer walking alone. Love this year no longer takes the shape of rushed promises or fleeting sparks that make the heart race and then leave emptiness behind. It matures in a very Libra way, balanced, steady, and deep. You begin to love without losing yourself, and without asking another person to fill spaces that only you can tend to. Love becomes presence, a place where two whole people meet, not to complete each other, but to walk side by side. The relationships that enter your life in 2026 carry a strangely familiar feeling. There is no need for long explanations, no effort to impress. Everything unfolds naturally, as if invisible threads had been tied long ago. It may be a friend, a partner, a collaborator, or someone who arrives quietly and stays for a very long time. This kind of connection does not drain you. It nourishes you. You begin to understand that when you are steady within yourself, the right people recognize it and find their way to you. No more relationships built on one-sided effort or silent sacrifice. Instead, there is a shared sense of moving towards something greater than each individual ego. Collaboration flows like water, where each person brings their own strength, and together creates something you could never build alone. Libra. This year learns to allow others into their world without fearing imbalance. You know where your boundaries are, so opening your heart no longer comes with anxiety. You understand now that real connection does not require you to dim your light. In fact, when you shine in your true way, those who resonate feel inspired to do the same. There is deep relief in realizing that you no longer have to carry everything alone. When you allow support to appear, life becomes easier to breathe in. Projects move faster, not because you work harder, but because you are working with the right people. Dreams begin to take clearer shape when someone else is looking in the same direction, believing in the same vision, and trusting in each other's abilities. Companionship in 2026 brings a very different kind of safety. Not dependence, but trust. You know that even if the road ahead changes, this connection can adapt because it is built on respect and understanding. Within that space, you feel seen, you feel heard. Not because you explain yourself better, but because who you are has become clear enough. You also begin to look back at past relationships with gentler eyes. No blame, no regret. Just the recognition that each person walked with you for a certain distance, and that continuing or letting go are both part of growth. You allow what needs to stay, and what needs to leave in peace. As you move through this year with an open heart and a grounded inner world, connection is no longer something you have to search for. It appears as a natural response to the way you live, and within that right rhythm of collaboration, one truth becomes very clear, that this journey is not only leading you to lasting success, but to another kind of wealth altogether. A wealth of shared moments, of meaning, of walking alongside others in a way that feels real, deeply human, and aligned on a path that is slowly and steadily opening into light. And when that light becomes warm enough for you to see everything clearly, you also begin to see what you no longer need to carry with you. There are things you have carried for far too long, not because they still hold value, but because you grew accustomed to being on guard. Guarded against other people's words, guarded against old memories, guarded against the fear that if you let go, you would become weak. But 2026 does not ask you to be strong in the old way. It invites you into a different kind of strength, one that is lighter, truer, and far more free. Libra in previous years learned how to stay safe by building invisible walls. You observed closely, you weighed everything carefully, and you rarely revealed the full depth of what you were feeling. That was once necessary. But now you begin to see that those walls did more than block pain. They also blocked the light. And you no longer wish to live in a state of constant defense. Letting go this year does not arrive as one decisive moment. It unfolds through very ordinary moments, when you choose not to react to something that once wounded you, when you stop retelling old stories to prove that you were treated unfairly, when you realize that holding onto the role of the victim, even unconsciously, is keeping you in a place you have long outgrown. You begin to understand that the past no longer has the right to define your present. What happened may explain who you once were, but it has no authority over who you are becoming. And when you stop carrying old wounds as part of your identity, your energy grows noticeably lighter. You breathe more deeply. You walk more slowly. And you no longer feel the need to prove how much you have endured. Forgiveness in 2026 is not an outward act. It does not require you to forget. It does not ask you to reconnect with what no longer fits. Forgiveness here is about reclaiming your own energy. It is the moment you decide not to allow painful memories to keep directing your present choices. It is the quiet moment when you tell yourself that you deserve a life that is not constantly pulled backward. There is a deep release when you realize you do not need to carry everything to prove that you lived honestly. You already did. You have already learned enough. And now, you are allowed to move forward with lighter hands, a softer heart, and a renewed trust in your own ability to heal. As the layers of defense are gently set down, you become more accessible, not only to others, but to yourself. You allow yourself to feel joy fully, without fearing that it will disappear. You allow yourself to feel sadness, without believing it makes you weak. And in that permission, you rediscover a rare kind of freedom, the freedom to be yourself without armor. You begin to notice that when you are no longer living from your wounds, you start living from choice. Each day is no longer a repetition of old reactions, but a new opportunity to respond to life with greater clarity. You no longer need to win against anyone. You simply move forward, gently, yet irreversibly. And within that gentleness, another feeling slowly emerges. The sense that the road ahead is not as rough as you once believed, that when you stop carrying what no longer belongs to you, each step becomes steadier in the most natural way. As if life itself is finally exhaling, ready to lead you farther, deeper, and brighter into a new form of yourself. Unbound by the past, and no longer afraid to open your heart to what is waiting ahead. And as you walk forward, with that lighter heart, you begin to recognize a very quiet truth, that some endings are not meant to take from you, but to give something back, the space you need to grow in a more complete way. The year 2026 carries the feeling of rebirth, not like a sudden page being turned, but like morning arriving after a long night. The light does not rush in. It seeps gently, slowly, just enough for you to see clearly what has already fulfilled its purpose. There were things that were once dreams, once hopes, once places where you placed so much belief. But when you look back now, there is no pain in their absence. You understand that they led you exactly where you needed to go, and then quietly stepped aside. Libra this year does not cling to what has already closed. You know that when a door shuts, it is not life rejecting you, but life rearranging itself with great care. What once seemed lost is quietly transforming, taking on a new form, one that fits the person you have become. Not every good thing returns in the same shape. Some return as new opportunities, some return as peace, and some return as a deeper understanding of yourself. You begin to look back on your entire journey with different eyes, no longer dividing it into right or wrong, gain or loss. Only gratitude remains. Every experience, whether it once broke you or strengthened you, left behind an essential piece, and those pieces have shaped who you are now, deep enough to understand, wide enough to show compassion, strong enough to keep moving forward. Rebirth this year does not turn you into someone completely new. It brings you back to a more original version of yourself, uncovered by expectations, roles, or fear. You feel it clearly. You are living more truthfully. No need to perform, no need to shrink, just living right. In a way that is quiet, yet powerful. There may still be days when you slow down. That does not take meaning away from the journey. In fact, those pauses allow you to feel the rhythm of life more clearly. You learn to walk with it, not rushing ahead, not falling behind. Each step now is carried by trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in what has passed. Trust in what is arriving. And if there is one final message to hold gently as a reminder, it is this: honor everything you have lived through. Not to relive it, but to recognize that no moment was meaningless. Every time you loved, every time you lost, every time you rose again, each one has been quietly guiding you back to your true path. A path that does not need to look like anyone else's. It only needs to look like you. As you step into 2026 with that understanding in your heart, you stop searching for reassurance outside yourself. You carry a deep sense of calm, knowing that no matter how life may change its shape, you know how to return to yourself. And within that return, there is light, there is healing, there is meaning, and there is a future waiting, not in a hurry, but fully ready to meet you at the right moment, in the right rhythm, on the path you had the courage to walk with honesty, with presence, and with your whole heart.